My steadfast child, let me tell you something that does not change. I am the same. I was the same yesterday. I am the same right now. I will be the same in every chapter that comes after this one. Not mostly the same. Not the same in general, with small adjustments based on your behavior or your circumstances or the shifting weather of your emotional life. The same, fully, completely, without qualification. The light I am does not flicker with the wind. The warmth I carry toward you is not cool when the distance between us grows. The commitment I made to you before your first breath was drawn was not a conditional commitment with invisible clauses that you have not yet triggered. It was absolute. It remains absolute. And in a world where everything around you is subject to change, where relationships shift, seasons turn, certainty gives way to new uncertainty, and the people you counted on most sometimes prove to be less permanent than you needed them to be. I am standing in the middle of all of it, unmoved, still exactly who I was, still holding every word I've ever spoken over your life with the same grip I held it with at the very beginning. The nature of who I am is not a variable in the equation of your life. It is the constant, the one fixed point around which everything else turns, the one thing you can anchor to when every other surface is shifting beneath your feet. My promises do not expire. I need you to hear that not as a phrase you already know from a long time of faith, but as a living truth pressing itself against the specific despair that has been sitting on your chest, the one you have not told anyone about, the one that whispers at you in the quiet hours that maybe the waiting has gone on too long, that maybe the promise was intended for someone else, that maybe the window you were watching for has finally closed and the thing you were trusting me for simply is not coming. I know that whisper. I know exactly when it comes for you, the particular hour, the particular quality of silence that lets it get through your defenses, the particular combination of fatigue and disappointment that makes it louder on some days than on others. And I am standing in that same silence right now, speaking a truth that is louder than every doubt the darkness has ever offered you. What I said to you, I meant. What I promised you, I hold. Expiration dates are invented by fear. Arrival dates are set by me. And those arrival dates are set by the only one who sees the full picture of what is being prepared and what you are being prepared for. And that one is me. Fear has been lying to you about the timeline. Hear me clearly on this. Fear is not a reliable narrator of your story. Fear takes the length of the wait and presents it as evidence that the wait will be permanent. Fear takes the silence of a season and presents it as proof that the season is your final address. Fear takes the gap between where you are and where the promise pointed and presents that gap as evidence that the promise was mistaken or that you were mistaken to receive it. Every one of those presentations is false. Length is not evidence of permanence. Silence is not evidence of abandonment. A gap between the promise and its visible fulfillment is not evidence of failure. It is simply the space in which the preparation is happening. And no one who has ever been in that space and then seen the arrival of what was promised has reported, on the other side, that the waiting was evidence the word would not come. Every single one has reported the opposite. From that far shore, they looked back and saw that the word was always moving toward them, that what felt like delay was actually development, and that arriving in the fullness of what was prepared required the full length of the preparation. You are in the middle of that kind of preparation right now. Not at the end of something, in the middle of a becoming. Think about what it means that I am your shepherd. Not a shepherd in the abstract sense of a distant figure with a general responsibility for a flock. Your shepherd. The one who knows your specific gait, the particular way you slow down when the terrain becomes unfamiliar, the way you tend to drift toward the left when the light fails and your instincts take over from your intention. A shepherd who knows all of that is not standing at a distance with a vague sense of the flock's general direction. That shepherd is close. That shepherd is paying attention to the individual, not just the group. and the pastures I am leading you toward are not pastures chosen at random or assigned by default to whoever happens to need them. They are green. They are the specific kind of green that your particular weariness most needs, the rest that fits the exact contours of your exhaustion, the stillness that matches the specific frequency of your inner noise. I am not offering you generic provision. I am offering you provision that is shaped around you, fitted to your actual need, calibrated to what you specifically require at this specific moment in your journey. When I say green pastures, I want you to understand what I am describing in concrete terms. The provision I am leading you toward is not a vague spiritual condition that floats above the practical texture of your daily life. It is actual rest in the physical sense, the kind where your muscles unclench and your breathing slows and the machinery of constant vigilance finally takes a pause because you have arrived somewhere safe enough to stop watching the door. It is actual provision for the bills that have been calculating themselves in the back of your mind, for the need that keeps presenting itself before you have had time to replenish what the last need drained. It is actual peace in your relationships, in the specific dynamics that have been requiring careful navigation, in the spaces where misunderstanding has been accumulating in layers that have made the original warmth harder to access. These are the green pastures, not a metaphor for something else entirely. The actual restorations of the actual specific dimensions of your actual specific life, and I am leading you there. The path is not visible in its entirety from where you are currently standing, but I am the one holding the path, and the path ends in pastures. There are things you have been carrying that were never designed to be carried by you alone. The weight on your shoulders right now is real. I am not minimizing it. I am not offering you the shallow comfort of someone who looks at a heavy load and says simply, "It will be fine," without actually moving toward you to help lift it. What I am offering you is something active, something present, something that is already in motion on your behalf before you have found the words to ask for it. My arm under your burden, my strength supplementing what yours has left. There is a reason the eagle does not beat its wings harder when the wind drops. Spreading wide, trusting the current beneath, that is the eagle's wisdom, and it is a wisdom I am offering to you right now. What I am doing in your life, in the places where your strength has run down to its last reserves, is positioning you for exactly that kind of lift, not demanding more of your tired wings, bringing the current underneath them. Renewal, the kind I am speaking about, is not the renewal of someone who grits their teeth and tries harder. It belongs to the one who has learned to stop fighting the very wind that was designed to carry them. There is something profound in what it means to have your strength renewed like an eagle's. Consider the eagle for a moment, not as a symbol, but as a living creature with a specific relationship to the conditions of its environment. The eagle does not reach its soaring altitude through a constant expenditure of extraordinary effort. It reads the air. It detects the invisible columns of warmth rising from the ground below, the thermals that carry lifting power invisible to any eye that does not know what to look for, and it positions itself within those currents with a precision born from a nature that was designed for exactly this kind of flight. The bird is not passive. It is perfectly calibrated to receive what the air is offering, and the result is altitude that no amount of frantic wing beating could achieve. Effortless elevation, the kind that looks from the ground like the bird has somehow escaped the laws of gravity that govern everything else. That is what I am doing in you, not asking you to beat harder against conditions that were never meant to be overcome by individual effort, calling you into alignment with what I am already doing, the upward current that is already moving, the force that is already in the air around you. Your job is not to generate the lift. Your job is to spread your wings and let it take you. The valley does not surprise me. Let me say that clearly, because the assumption underneath a great deal of discouragement is the assumption that your current difficulty represents a development that was not anticipated, a complication that arrived outside the planned course of things and that requires emergency management, rather than steady walking. Hear this. The valley of shadow and difficulty that you are moving through right now, the one that feels like it should have ended by now, the one where the darkness has lasted long enough that you have started to wonder if the light at the other end is real or merely a story you told yourself to get through the first difficult stretches. That valley is not a sign of my absence. It is a place I know by name. I have walked through it ahead of you. Every shadow in it has a shape I have already seen. Every sound in it has a frequency have already mapped. Every threat in it has been assessed by the only eyes that can see in that kind of dark. When I say I am with you in the valley, I do not mean I am watching from somewhere above it, tracking your progress and ready to intervene if things get genuinely serious. I mean I am in it, beside you. The rod and the staff that comfort you are not symbols. They are the actual presence of a shepherd who does not leave the sheep when the terrain gets dangerous. That is precisely when the shepherd draws closest. The rod in my hand is not decoration. It is the active management of the threats around you that you cannot see because your attention is rightly placed on the path in front of your feet rather than on the perimeter. There are things that have approached your life and been turned back before they reached you. Situations that could have compounded your difficulty but were redirected by a hand you did not see moving. Problems that could have arrived on your doorstep and did not because something intervened in the space between the threat and the target. I want you to know about those things not to produce a false sense of invulnerability, but because the accounting of your protection is incomplete if it only includes what you survived with visible effort. The fuller accounting includes what you were kept from. The fuller accounting shows a faithfulness that operates in the unseen as consistently as in the seen. A protection that is working whether or not you are aware that there was anything to be protected from. That protection is not random. It is not the result of favorable cosmic circumstances. It is the result of a shepherd with a rod who takes the safety of what belongs to him seriously. There is a light on the other side of where you are. A clarity that is coming. An emergence from shadow into the kind of open, luminous space that only feels the way it feels because you have been in the dark long enough to understand what you were missing. That contrast, the specific quality of light after genuine darkness, is one of the things that build into the structure of the path for a reason. A person who has only ever known comfortable middle ground cannot feel the full warmth of the sun the way someone who has been cold can feel it. The brightness that is waiting for you on the other side of this valley is not a brightness you will be able to walk past without noticing. It will catch you. It will stop you. It will stand you still in the middle of the path and make you take it in with every part of yourself, because the whole of you will recognize it as what you were made for, what you were always moving toward, and what the valley was part of preparing you to receive. Consider the dawn, not as a concept, but as an actual event. The specific moment, just before the light breaks, when the sky holds both darkness and the approaching brightness at once, and the horizon begins to separate into distinct shapes that were indistinguishable minutes before, and the color that was absent returns to the world with a gradual certainty that does not apologize for the darkness that preceded it. The dawn does not rush. It does not arrive all at once in a burst of sudden illumination that bypasses the process. It comes in layers. First, the faintest suggestion of difference in the quality of the dark, then the gradual clarifying of shapes, then the first actual color, tentative and beautiful, spread across the lowest edge of the visible sky, then the full rising, unhurried and complete, until the landscape is entirely made new by a light that was always coming, that the darkness was never going to stop, that required nothing from the sleeping world below except the willingness to let the night end and the morning begin. That is the pattern of what I do in a life. Not all at once in a way that bypasses the process, but in layers, each one more visible than the last, until the full brightness of what I promised is standing in plain view. And once it arrives, the full brightness, there is nothing tentative about it. It is complete. It is the whole light. And it was coming the whole time you were in the dark. My promises do not expire. I want to speak about the things you have tried to pray through that have not yet resolved in the way you asked for them to resolve. The requests that have been on your lips for longer than you can comfortably think about without the weight that unanswered prayer creates in a sincere heart. I know the exact inventory of those prayers. I know which ones you still bring to me with full confidence and which ones you have started to present more carefully, hedging the hope in them slightly so that the disappointment, if it comes again, does not land quite as hard as it has landed before. I know the ones you have essentially stopped voicing because the voicing has become too painful, though the longing underneath them has not quieted and probably never will until they are answered. Those prayers are not forgotten. The silence around them is not the silence of a petition that was filed and lost. It is the silence of work happening in the unseen layers of a situation that has more dimensions than the visible surface reveals. Something important is true about the silence you have been sitting in. The answer is not absent. What surrounds you in the quiet is not the emptiness of a request gone unheard. It is the quiet of a construction already underway in dimensions your eyes have not yet been given access to. Silence that means no is permanent. Silence that means not yet continues to shift as the preparation moves forward. Silence that means I am building becomes a different quality of quiet when you listen for what is beneath it rather than using it as evidence that nothing is there. This distinction matters more than your current interpretation of it allows. A person who accepts a final no from me will eventually stop asking. Someone who understands that the quiet is the sound of construction continues to bring the request forward, not with frantic desperation, not with the anxious repetition of someone afraid the silence is final, but with the steady persistence of a person who knows the builder is working even when the construction site appears quiet from the outside. Keep bringing it to me, not because I need reminding, because the act of continued prayer is doing something in you, building the very quality of trust that will be required to carry what the answer brings when it arrives. Waiting is not wasted. Asking is not futile. Process is part of the answer. Let me tell you what I observe about your faithfulness, because this is something worth speaking directly, without softening, without the kind of general encouragement that might apply to anyone. You have kept trusting when keeping trust was genuinely costly. There were moments, and you know exactly which ones they were, when the easier option was to let go, to tell yourself that this particular hope was not worth the weight of continuing to carry it, to redirect your faith towards something smaller and more manageable and less exposed to the specific kind of disappointment that comes from caring about something too much for too long. You did not do that. You held on. Not always with full confidence, not always without struggle, not always in a way that looked composed from the outside. But you held, sometimes with trembling hands, sometimes with more doubt than certainty in the mix, sometimes simply because you did not have enough energy left to walk away, and letting go requires its own kind of effort. You held in the only way that was available to you in those moments, and the holding was real, and I saw every version of it. Not one moment of your faithfulness has been invisible to me. Hear that clearly, because the temptation in a long season of waiting is to begin to feel that your continued trust is unnoticed, that it has become expected rather than recognized, that the value of believing without seeing has been somehow discounted by the extended duration of the trial. Nothing has been discounted. Nothing has been taken for granted. Courage that keeps believing when visible evidence points in a different direction is one of the most significant things a person can do in a human life. It is the quality that distinguishes faith from mere agreement with comfortable facts. And I am telling you that your faith, in the full, costly, persevering form it has taken in this season, I am looking at it with the attention of someone who understands what it cost, who knows everything that was competing for your belief and chose instead to lose, who sees the choice you make every day to orient yourself toward me rather than toward the evidence that would pull you elsewhere. Measuring your worth by visible accomplishments was the lie the world taught you. In the results you could display, In the outcomes you could point to and say, "Here, this is what I have done. This is proof that I belong here. This is my justification for the space I take up in the world." That measure is wrong. I am not interested in your results as evidence of your worth. Your worth was settled before you had results, before you had accomplishments, before you had anything to offer beyond the fact of your existence, the specific, irreplaceable, unrepeatable existence that began in my intention before it began in the world. And that worth has not been recalculated by any difficulty you have been through, any season of apparent failure, any stretch of time in which the visible evidence of your life seemed to contradict the promises you had been given. You are not worth less to me than you were in your best moments. The measurement does not work that way in my economy. You are worth the full price I paid, which was everything, and that price was not set by your performance. It was set by my love, and my love does not reduce. There are people around you who are in the middle of their own darkness and have not yet told you. The ones who present well, who carry themselves with a composure that makes their private struggling invisible to the casual observer, they are there. In the rooms you move through every ordinary day, behind the faces that give nothing away, in the conversations that stay comfortable and surface level because dropping below the surface requires a trust that has not yet been established or a courage that the situation has not yet produced. These people are watching your life more carefully than you know. The transformation happening in you is visible to them even in the ways you cannot see it from the inside. The quality of your peace in circumstances that should not be producing peace. The way you speak about difficulty without the bitterness that difficulty you produces in a person who is carrying it without support. The specific gravity of a settled trust in your manner that communicates something to people who are desperate for evidence that such a thing is possible. What I am doing in you is not only for you. The weight I am helping you carry, the ground I am helping you find your footing on, the light I am restoring to your own vision, all of it is moving through you toward the people around you who are still in the dark. A lamp is not lit for the lamp's own benefit. A candle does not burn to warm itself. What I am bringing alive in you is meant to be visible. Your life is an argument, and the argument I am building through you is the most persuasive kind, not a lecture delivered at a safe distance, but a life lived in full view, marked by a peace that the circumstances do not explain and a hope that the evidence does not justify, carried by someone who has been in the difficulty and has not been destroyed by it. The people watching your life need that argument more than they need any word you might speak to them directly. Live it fully. Do not hide the peace in you. Do not conceal the brightness of what I have put in you out of a false humility that calls attention to itself by appearing smaller than it is. Let the light in you be fully what it is. My arm around you is not metaphorical. When I say I am holding you, I am not speaking in the language of comfortable religious imagery that we say to each other without fully believing. I am describing something that is actually happening in the spiritual reality that underlies every visible circumstance of your life. The support you feel on the days when you should be falling apart by any reasonable accounting, the calm that arrives in you without explanation in the middle of situations that have every ingredient of crisis, the unexpected sense of something solid beneath your feet when you were certain the ground was gone. That is not a coincidence. That is not a lucky accident of emotional chemistry. That is my hand. The same hand that separated the waters, that steadied the ark in the storm, that pulled the drowning man up from the deep and set his feet back on ground. That hand is not resting. It is not removed to some distance from which it might eventually be dispatched in an emergency. It is already under you. It has been under you this entire time, through the seasons when you felt it and through the seasons when you could not, through the days when the evidence of its presence was everywhere, and through the days when you looked for it and the looking produced only silence. The hand was there in the silence too, constant, unwavering, holding the same quality of firm support in the difficult seasons as in the easy ones. because the constancy of my support does not depend on the constancy of your circumstances. The enemy has no claim on what belongs to me. Let me be clear about something that fear would rather obscure. The things in your life that have been contested, the provisions that have seemed under threat, the peace that has been disturbed, the relationships that have been strained by forces that were not originating from inside your own heart, none of that is a sign of my diminished authority over what I have declared as mine. I declared you as mine. The implications of that declaration are total. What is mine is shielded by a strength that does not diminish with use, protected by a faithfulness that does not negotiate with the opposition, held in the grip of a love that has never learned to let go of what it has chosen. When challenges press against the borders of your life, they are not pressing against an undefended perimeter. They are pressing against the boundary marked by my name. And my name has weight in dimensions that the visible world does not fully reveal. The darkness that has tried to surround your household, the confusion that has circulated in the spaces between you and the people you love, the heaviness that has settled over areas of your life that were once light, these are not permanent features of your landscape. They are not the natural condition of a life that has simply arrived at its true character after the initial brightness faded. They are an intrusion, a disturbance. And I respond to disturbances in what belongs to me with the full force of a God who does not negotiate his authority over what he has redeemed. Stand firm in what I have told you, not with the brittle confidence of someone who has talked themselves into a position, but with the deep-rooted stability of someone who knows the ground they are standing on was prepared by a builder who does not cut corners and does not abandon what he is building. What I started in your life, I will complete. What I declared over your household, I will establish. The light I have set in the middle of your circumstances is not going out. Let me speak to the exhaustion now. The bone-deep weariness that is not about last night's sleep or last week's schedule. The weariness that comes from fighting on multiple fronts for a long period of time. From maintaining hope when hope is expensive. From continuing to believe in the good of what is coming when the present keeps presenting its contradictions. That weariness is real, and I am not asking you to perform an energy you do not have. What I am asking is that you redirect the energy that is available toward receiving rather than striving. There is a difference between the activity of chasing and the activity of opening. The eagle in the rising current is not inactive, it is holding a posture. It is doing the work of staying open to what is beneath it. The renewal I am offering you requires that same posture, not passivity, not the absence of engagement with your life, but the specific orientation of a person who has stopped trying to generate by force what can only be received by grace. Open your hands. Let the grip relax. The fist that grips the heart around what it fears to lose is the same fist that cannot receive what is being offered. And what I am offering you right now, held out toward you in the full generosity of a love that has not counted your failures or grown impatient with your process, is worth the opening of the hand. What I am placing in your hands as you open them is not only provision for today, it is the renewed capacity to believe again for the things that the long wait has made harder to hold. The hope that slipped below the surface of daily management because sustaining it required more energy than you had available. The expectation of goodness that got gradually replaced by a more careful, more defended, more self-protective way of moving through the world. The open heart that would let joy arrive without first subjecting it to scrutiny for the trap it might be carrying. These are what the eagle's renewal looks like in a human life. Not just restored energy in the physical sense. Restored capacity for the full range of what your life was designed to hold. Restored willingness to be surprised by grace. Restored ability to receive without the reflexive bracing of someone who has been disappointed enough times that receiving something good has started to feel riskier than not expecting it. There is a specific brightness that belongs to the moment when a long-trusted promise finally becomes visible in the physical world. The moment when what you have believed in the dark breaks into the light of visible reality and you see it with your actual eyes, rather than holding it only in the interior landscape of your faith. That moment is in the structure of your story. It is built into the narrative arc that I have been writing over your life with a careful attention to the whole shape of the thing. The resolution you have been waiting for is not an interruption to the story. It is a chapter the story was always moving toward. I know you cannot see the whole arc from where you are standing. I know the chapter you are currently in does not look, from the inside, like the chapter just before the turning. Those rarely do. The character in the story does not know they are on the last hard page before the breakthrough. But the author does. And I am telling you, from the position of the one who holds the whole story in full view, you are closer than the darkness is telling you you are. The light is not a hope you invented to cope. It is a real place. I built it. It has your name on it. And the path that leads there is the very path you are walking. Nothing you have done has changed my character. I need to be direct about this, because the guilt that accumulates in the interior life of a sincere person over a long season of imperfection is one of the heaviest things a human being carries. The things you said when you were operating from your worst self. The choices you made in seasons of confusion, or weakness, or genuine rebellion, when you turned away from what you knew was good and toward what offered relief in a faster form. The ways you have fallen short of the person you know yourself capable of being at your best. I have not been keeping a ledger. Not the kind of ledger your guilt is keeping, with every item carefully recorded and the running total constantly visible in the back of your awareness. My mercy is not a currency that runs out. My forgiveness is not offered conditionally to the people whose failures fall beneath a certain threshold. It extends of the full length of every failure you have ever brought to me with a genuine heart. And the genuine heart does not require perfect articulation or flawless contrition. It requires only the turning, the actual movement toward me, however imperfect, however inarticulate, however tangled up with other motivations. I recognize the genuine turning from very far away. And every time you have turned, I have been running toward you. Grace and mercy walk beside you every day of your life. Not as amenities I provide when conditions are favorable. They are the permanent condition of our relationship. Every path you take, I am walking beside you with goodness on one side and mercy on the other. These are not occasional visitors to your story. They are its constant companions. The goodness is not waiting for you to have a particularly good day to show up. The mercy is not held in reserve for especially dramatic failures. They are present in the ordinary moments, the unremarkable days, the stretches of your life that feel neither particularly blessed nor particularly tested, the background texture of a life that is being watched over and sustained and carried through circumstances that would look very different if the watching and the sustaining and the caring were removed from the equation. The full accounting of what my goodness and mercy have done in your life on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, when nothing dramatic was happening, but the care was just as present as it is in the crisis moments, that accounting would astonish you. It has never stopped. Consider what it means that nothing can separate you from what I have promised you. The forces that have tried to interrupt your story, the circumstances that seem designed to derail it, the voices that spoke over you in seasons of vulnerability with assessments of what was possible and what was not. None of them have editorial authority over the narrative I am writing. A shepherd's promise to the sheep in his care is not conditional on the terrain remaining comfortable. The promise holds in the valley of shadow exactly as it holds in the green pastures. The commitment I made to you was made with full knowledge of everything that would come between the making of the promise and its fulfillment. I saw the difficulty you would face. I saw the seasons of doubt. I saw the moments when the distance between what I had promised and what was visible in your life would feel impossibly wide. I made the promise with all of that in full view. And I made it anyway, because the promise was not based on ideal conditions. It was based on who I am. And who I am does not change with conditions. The light in you carries further than you believe. On the days when you feel the brightness of what I have placed in you most acutely, when the certainty of my love is close to the surface and accessible, you perhaps have some sense of it. The way the people around you respond to your presence, the specific warmth that moves through a room when you enter it fully rather than partially, the way a conversation with you leaves another person feeling more seen than they expected to feel. But on the days when the brightness is less accessible, when the accumulated weight of your circumstances has settled between you and the clarity of what I have put in you, you may not be able to feel what is still there. The light I placed in you does not depend on your ability to feel it to remain present. It was set there by a source that is not subject to your fluctuating awareness of it, and it continues to operate regardless of your current emotional temperature. The candle keeps its nature on the days it is not burning. The dawn keeps its appointment on the nights that felt most permanent. And you keep your light on the days when the heaviness of your season makes you feel dark from the inside. Let me speak about the mercy that covers your past. There are things you have done that you have not fully set down yet. Not because you have not asked for forgiveness, you have. Not because you do not believe in grace, you do. In principle, on most days. But because the specific gravity of certain memories makes them harder to release than the theology of forgiveness might suggest. The thing you regret from 10 years ago, that you still return to sometimes in your least guarded moments, turning it over, looking for the version of the past where you made a different choice and the thing you are most ashamed of did not happen. The way you treated someone you loved when you were operating from the worst version of yourself and did not yet know how to stop. The opportunity you did not take because fear had a louder voice than courage in that particular moment. The relationship that broke in a way that might have been prevented if you had handled it differently, and the wondering that goes with that loss. The quiet, recurring wondering that is not quite grief and not quite regret, but something of both. Not a single one of those memories constitutes your definition. Every one of them has been held in my hands. Each one has been covered by a mercy that does not perform coverage in the sense of merely concealing damage from you. What I offer is a genuine renovation, a real changing of the substance of the past as it exists in the continuing life of a person who made a mistake and is still living forward from that point. You exist in a continuous chain of becoming that I am still working on, and the direction of that becoming, the trajectory of a heart that orients itself toward me than in its imperfections, is the thing I am looking at when I examine your history. Not the individual moments of failure, not the worst chapters. What captures my attention is the overall direction of a life that keeps returning to me. That returning is the story I am writing, and every story I write ends in goodness. There is nothing you are facing right now that is larger than my faithfulness toward you. I know that statement can feel insufficient when the specific weight of what you are facing is very present and very heavy. I know the gap between a large truth spoken in general terms and the very specific difficulty sitting in front of you can feel like the truth does not quite reach. So let me make it concrete. The situation you have been losing rest over, the one that sits in your awareness with a persistence that other concerns cannot displace. I see every dimension of it, not the surface dimensions that are visible to you and to anyone you might have told about it. Every dimension, the roots of it that go back further than the problem appears to go. The adjacent situations that are feeding it in ways that have not yet become visible. The resolution that is forming in the unseen layers of it, the path through it that exists even though it is not yet visible from where you are standing. I see all of it. And from that vantage point, the full view, the complete picture, the accounting that includes everything that you can see and everything you cannot. The conclusion I reach is the same conclusion I always reach about your life. You are going to be all right, not because nothing difficult is happening, because I am the one holding what is happening. I am your healer, not in the abstract sense of a divine capacity that exists somewhere in theory, but does not translate to the specific physical and emotional and relational injuries of your actual body and your actual life. In the specific sense, the same word that created the complexity of a human body knows the particular location of what needs restoring in yours. The same power that set the stars in their places is not indifferent to the places in you that are broken and need mending. Bring it to me. Whatever you have been managing quietly on your own, whatever you have been afraid, was either too small to bring to a God who sustains the universe, or too broken to be fixed by the time you brought it. Bring it. Nothing is too small. Nothing is too far gone. The healer who closes a wound knows how to do it without leaving a scar that is worse than the original wound. What I offer is not a rough approximation of wholeness. It is the real thing, shaped specifically around what was lost in you and what the person you are now needs in order to flourish. A soul that rests in my care is restored. That is what it means when I say, I restore your soul. Not that I smooth over the surface of a spirit that is still disturbed underneath. Not that I apply a temporary relief that lasts until the next pressure arrives. A genuine, deep, reaching all the way down restoration of the part of you that is most essentially you, the part that was there before the world got to you and started teaching you to manage yourself, the part that knows its own name without being told, the part that was designed for closeness with me and that experiences a specific kind of fatigue in any season where that closeness is reduced. That part of you was designed to be restored. The restoration is not optional for your flourishing. It is the condition of it. And what I am doing in you right now, in the quiet beneath the noise of your circumstances, in the places where the transformation is happening before it is visible, is precisely this. I am restoring your soul. I am bringing back what the difficulty took. I am returning what the long seasons wore down. I am rebuilding the interior structure of your confidence in me that was stressed by the weight of the waiting and the silence and the sustained difficulty of a long season of trial. The restoration is real. It is happening. And when it is complete, the person who walks out of this season will be more solidly rooted in my faithfulness than the person who walked in. Let me speak about the path ahead of you. Not to provide a specific map, because the specific map is not what I am offering. The specific map is what would make you less, not more, capable of walking with me through the actual territory when you encounter it. What I am offering is better than a map. I am offering my presence on the path, which means you have with you at every step someone who has already been there and knows what each section of it requires, and what each apparent dead end actually conceals, and where the path turns when it looks from the front like it ends. The path does not end where it appears to end, it turns. Sometimes the turn is sharp enough that you cannot see around it until you have committed to the direction, and the commitment itself is the thing that moves you close enough to the turn to see what is on the other side of it. I am asking you to make that commitment with me, to move forward on the path not because all the information you need is already visible, but because you know who set the path and you have decided that the character of the one who laid it is sufficient grounds for trusting the road even where the road is not clear. I want to speak to you about what I call the table I have prepared. Every enemy that has tried to discourage you, every force that has worked against the good things I have spoken over your life, every voice that declared you defeated, every circumstance that looked like the final word on your potential, all of it has been forced to watch while I set a table in that very place. Not around the corner from the difficulty, not after the struggle is safely over and the witnesses are gone. In the presence of everything that tried to stop you. That is where I set the table. That is where I pour the cup until it overflows. That is where I anoint your head with the specific blessing that your specific life most needs. This is not metaphor. In the very territory where the challenge has been greatest, the provision I am spreading for you is the most visible, the most particular, the most impossible to attribute to coincidence. When people around you look at what has been built in your life through a season that should have reduced it, when they see what remains standing in you after the storms, that were supposed to tear it down. What they are looking at is my table set in the middle of the wilderness. What they are seeing is the evidence of a God who does not wait for comfortable conditions to honor what he has promised. What they are witnessing, even if they do not have the words for it, is a faithfulness that has been operating the whole time. Something I want you to carry forward from this word into the ordinary days ahead. Not the emergency level awareness of my presence that visits in the hardest moments and then retreats when the pressure eases. Something more continuous, more integrated into the texture of how you move through your life. A quiet, constant sense of being accompanied. A background knowledge, not always at the surface of your awareness, but available when you reach for it, that the one who set the stars knows your name and has been speaking in it over your circumstances with a specificity that includes everything you are currently facing. That kind of consciousness changes the quality of an ordinary day in ways that are hard to measure precisely, but are entirely real. A person who knows they are accompanied walks differently through a difficult room. A person who knows they are watched over by faithful eyes reaches for the good thing with a fraction less of the hesitation that doubt installs. A person who has settled, in the most practical sense, the question of whether they are loved and whether the love holds. That person has access to a steadiness that has nothing to do with their current circumstances and everything to do with the quality of the ground they are standing on. That ground is what I am offering you. Stand on it. Let it be the thing beneath every step you take. The victory I am walking you toward is not the victory of circumstances finally arranging themselves conveniently. It is the deeper victory of a life lived from a place of genuine trust in the one who holds all circumstances in his hands. A life that does not require ideal conditions to flourish, because its flourishing is rooted in something that conditions cannot reach. That is the life I am building for you. Not a sheltered life where nothing hard arrives at the door. A grounded life where hard things arrive and find a person who knows who they belong to and knows that belonging is a more durable fact than any difficulty that has come to challenge it. That kind of life is not built in comfortable seasons. It is built in the valley. It is built in the waiting. It is built in the sustained faithfulness of a person who chose to trust through seasons when trusting was the most costly choice available. And the building you have been doing, through all of it, has produced something real, something that is going to hold. You are going to come through this. You are going to arrive on the other side of what you are currently in the middle of. And when you look back at this season from that far shore, you will see things you cannot see from where you are standing now. You will see the hand that was guiding when the guidance was invisible. You will see the provision that was present even in the moments that felt most like scarcity. You will see the protection that was operating in the background of days that felt exposed and undefended. You will see the purpose threading itself through difficulty that seemed, while you were in it, to have no purpose at all. You will see the connections being made on your behalf in places you had no access to. You will see the doors that were opening while all your attention was focused on the ones that had closed. You will see the timing that looked, from inside the waiting, like cruelty or indifference, and you will understand it at last as the precise, deliberate, loving coordination of a God who was holding every piece of your story in full view the entire time. You will see me, active in every layer of what you went through, not as a spectator of your suffering, not as a distant administrator of your circumstances, but as the shepherd who was in the valley with you the whole time, who knew every shadow in it by name, who never for a single moment considered leaving you to navigate it alone. Already the dawn is in motion. Already the light is beginning its approach from the direction you least expected it to come from, because that is how I have always worked, arriving from angles that surprised the doubt that was watching the obvious roads. Brightness that seems impossibly distant from the depths of where you are standing right now is moving toward you with the same certainty with which every dawn has moved toward every darkness that preceded it. Nothing stops the dawn. Nothing in all of history has ever stopped it. Darkest nights in human history gave way to morning. Deepest winters gave way to spring. Long and difficult seasons of shadow eventually yielded to light that came back with a warmth proportionate to how long it had been absent. Here is the pattern of what I always do. Here is the character of the one you are trusting. Not a God who sometimes keeps his promises when conditions allow. A God whose promises are the condition, the thing everything else is built on, the foundation that holds whether or not the structure above it is visible and whether or not the person standing on it can feel the ground beneath their feet. Standing firmly on that foundation is what you are doing right now, whether you can feel the ground or not. And the dawn coming toward you is as certain as the one who promised it. My promises do not expire. Rest in that. Not the rest of someone who has stopped caring. The rest of someone who has decided to stop carrying alone what was never meant to be carried alone. The rest of a child who has walked a long road and arrived at a door that was lit from the inside and reached for the handle and found it already turning from the other side. That rest is available to you, not at some future point when your circumstances have resolved and the reasons for anxiety have been removed. Right now, in the middle of exactly what you are in the middle of, with all of it still present and still unresolved by visible standards. The peace I offer does not wait for the problem to disappear. It enters the problem. It moves through the difficulty and establishes itself in the interior of a person who has decided to receive it, regardless of what the outer circumstances are currently reporting. And I am asking you to make that decision, not because the difficulty is not real, because I am more real than the difficulty, and the one who is with you is greater than whatever is against you. The light of who I am shines in every darkness, and no darkness has ever overcome it. Amen. If this message touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear these words right now. There is someone in your life who is questioning whether God still holds to what he promised, whether the waiting has gone on too long, whether the light at the end of the valley is real. This word is for them too. Pass it on with the confidence of someone who has heard truth spoken directly into their own need. And if you are carrying something heavy right now, type Amen in the comments below. Let that one word be your declaration that you are choosing to trust the one whose faithfulness does not change, whose character is the same across every season, and whose love for you is as certain and as present as it has ever been.